Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Melissa and this is Melissa's Kitchen. So today we're going to do something a little bit different than what I normally do. I typically prepare meals for the family, but I'm actually going to do a video on raw feeding for dogs. I've had a number of people approach me and ask me questions about it. For those of you who know, I have two dogs. I have a French Bulldog, Sadie, and I have an Italian Mastiff, Cane Corso. Her name is Layla, and they've been on raw diet since they were puppies. And so that's the new thing. You're hearing a lot more about raw feeding, and there's a lot of information coming out about it. A lot of people have their opinions on raw feeding. I'll give you my take on it and kind of demonstrate for you what I do when I'm preparing a meal for them. But again, you could find so many videos now on raw feeding, and everyone's got an opinion on it. But, you know, I've been successful in having my dogs on this diet for a while now, for most of their lives. So what I have in front of me, and I'm not going to pull this out until the very end, but this is a food scale that I ordered off of Amazon. It's actually really useful when you're trying to control the amount of food that you're preparing, whether it's in ounces or in pounds. But I recently have decided to weigh the food that I give my dogs, only because with my Mastiff, Layla, I'm trying to get her weight up. And then with Sadie, my Bulldog, I'm actually trying to maintain a healthy weight. So if you have a dog and you are interested in raw feeding, I do recommend that you look up your breed standards as far as what the weight, you know, what the ideal weight should be for their age. But I'm going to just kind of show you what I do for both of the dogs. And it'll be a little bit of a contrast because obviously for a big Mastiff, the portions are going to be a little bit different and the focus is going to be a little different as far as goals in providing adequate nutrition. And then I'll also show you what I would prepare for my Bulldog. So what I have in front of me is I got my cutting board and I have a chicken quarter. So if you're interested in transitioning your dogs into a raw diet, I think that chicken is a good start. I think that it's a little bit, I don't know how to say it. As you kind of go down the line as far as raw feeding goes, it gets more creative. And I think the most basic start you can do is chicken. Now, there's so many different cuts of a chicken that you can use. I prefer a chicken leg quarter, and I'm going to tell you why. When you're feeding raw, the biggest thing that vets worry about is a calcium phosphorus ratio, and basically they want to make sure that if a dog is on a raw diet that they're getting a good balance of calcium and phosphorus, because if you don't, you can run into a lot of problems with bone demineralization, joint problems, and serious health problems for your dog. So you really don't want that. Your dog really does need calcium and phosphorus for good bone development. The other thing with raw feeding, there's been a lot of, and I've had a number of people tell me this, that you can't give a dog a bone. Now, I will tell you that cooked bones are not recommended because they do splinter and it can cause internal injury to the dog. But raw bone is actually okay because raw bone does not splinter. Now, I recommend chicken bone over beef bone. Beef bone is too dense and you will cause a dog to break their teeth on that. But chicken bone is okay. So there is a difference. And I do like the chicken quarter because if you can see right here, this is the spine and this has a lot of good bone on this. Now, with my Mastiff, she's going on about almost 70 pounds as a puppy. So for her to eat all of this is actually okay for her. She'll just crush it and chew it until she eats it all up. For a smaller dog, obviously you can cut into different pieces. Now for the sake of this video, I don't mind cutting, but I'm going to give all of this to Layla. And actually, when I get to Sadie, I'm going to get another piece of chicken, because all of this is actually going to my Mastiff. And I don't know if you can see the entire table here, but I have other things that I'm going to be giving her. So the important thing with a raw diet also is to feed a variety. They really need to get about 10% bone. They also need organ meat, but it's not a whole lot. I'm real bad with exact percentages. I kind of go off of, you know, how it looks in the bowl, because I've been doing this for a while, so I'm not the most precise person, but there is a lot of literature out there that gives the breakdown in the percentage of what the dietary requirement is. I do know that bone is about 10%. Organ meats is not a whole lot, but they definitely need organ meats. What I have with me today is chicken liver. I don't know if you can see it right here. I have chicken livers, very affordable, very healthy, a lot of iron, a lot of B6, B12. You want to be very careful though with chicken livers. You do not want to give too much of this. You will cause a really bad case of diarrhea in your dogs. So please use this sparingly. It's very good, but only in small quantities. As far as organ meats go, I mean, I do give chicken hearts and beef heart, but that's considered to be more of a muscle meat than actual organ meat, believe it or not. I do give beef kidney. I don't have that on me today, but I do feed that, and I do switch it up. Every week when I purchase products, I try to switch it up. I don't try to get the same thing every single time. I will feed tripe. Tripe is really good for dogs, great organ meat. I'm trying to think. Oh, and chicken feet is not an organ, but that's another item that I usually have with me. I don't have it on me today because my local grocery store didn't have any today. Typically in the beginning of the week, they don't have a lot. Usually when I'm there the middle of the week, they have more shipments come in. So chicken feet, as a side note, is really good because it has the joints and the ligaments and the tendons in it from the chicken claw, and it has a lot of substance called glucosamine, which is good for joint development and cartilage development. So if you have a big dog like me, like a Mastiff or even a Shepherd, or, you know, a bully or any type of large dog, you really want to make sure that their bones are in good shape and that their joints are healthy, because obviously anyone who has a big dog knows hip and any type of bone joint dysplasia is a risk. So if you are going to go raw, please do your homework. Don't take my word for everything, but please do your homework and make sure you're giving a balanced diet and that you're giving your dog what your dog needs. So we're going to start with Layla's plate. So I'll go ahead and cut this for the sake of the video. I will tell you, I give this to her whole like this. I mean, I do not cut her meat up into very small pieces because she's quite a big dog and she can eat a lot. Sometimes I even have to pace her because she'll just gobble everything up. Now for my Mastiff, she's 10 months old. I feed her a total of 3 pounds of meat a day. So I feed her twice a day. So I feed her 1.5 pounds early in the day, and then for the second meal later in the day, I feed her another 1.5 pounds. And the 1.5 pounds, it comprises of different types of meat, okay? So I'm gonna just give you a rundown of what I give. So I'm gonna put this over here to the side here. And for the sake of this demonstration, I am gonna cut this, but just know that I don't typically cut a quarter for her, okay? Actually, I'm a little nervous about this egg sitting here on the edge. I don't want a disaster to happen. So I kind of cut along, and I've done a video on how to cut a chicken. It's in my fried chicken video. So if you're very interested in learning how to cut a chicken into different sections, please watch my my Old Bay Tabasco buttermilk fried chicken video. It really goes down in great detail on how to cut along the different fat lines of the chicken and how to cut with precision and to kind of cut around the joints. So I just kind of cut right here. So a chicken quarter is essentially 2 pieces here. So the other great thing about a chicken quarter, I'm just kind of doing this as I talk. So I got these 2 pieces here. in addition to the spine, there is a little bit of organ meat right here. So if you're trying to get in your recommended percentage or recommended amount of organ meat, this can help, contribute to that. If you're paying attention to how much organ meat you're giving. But this is a really good piece of chicken. I really love the quarter. You can get them from Walmart for not a whole lot. You can get a whole bag of them for not a lot. So I've already cut this. So I'm going to go ahead and put this to the side for now. One thing that I've recently started using is a pork tenderloin. Some owners do give a good bit of raw pork. I use it sparingly, but I do give it in small quantities. So I'm going to do a little bit of pork tenderloin, and I also have here with me cheek meat. So this is something that's sold at Walmart and at a lot of farms and different grocery stores. This is basically beef cheek, so the cheek of a cow. It has a lot of great well perfused, well circulated meat here, good source of iron, has a lot of striations and muscular tissue. So this is going to count towards your muscle meat. So chicken would be considered muscle meat as well as bone. You got muscle meat here. Pork tenderloin is part of the muscle meat category as well. And then I also have, make sure I'm not knocking things over, I have some ground bison right here, really good source of protein, good red meat. So I don't always get this. This is just a little treat that I do for them every now and then to kind of, spice it up and make, keep up the variety. And then, okay, hold on to your horses here. All right, and here I have beef tongue. This is actually a really good source of meat. Again, there's a little bit of muscle in here. This portion right here, there are actually people who eat beef tongue for a variety of, recipes and dishes. I actually give them this part. My dogs, I give them this part of the tongue. A lot of times when other people are preparing this for dishes to serve to people, they may cut this little piece out. I'm probably going to start with the underside of the tongue right here. This is a tremendous amount of meat under the tongue. I mean, the actual tongue itself is okay, but under the tongue, there's a tremendous amount of really good muscle meat. So I'm going to put this to the side, and then I already told you about the chicken livers. And then the final thing is I do have some pumpkin. This is 100% pure pumpkin, no seasoning, no cinnamon, no nothing. You can get this from the grocery store. I love pumpkin as a supplement because one thing with raw diet, when you're first starting out in the beginning, sometimes when you transition to raw, you will get looser stools, which can be normal for the first week or two that you put a dog on raw food. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you are concerned and you want to solidify the stools, pumpkin is recommended. Pumpkin will firm it right up and clear it up. But another thing to keep in mind, if you are going to transition from kibble to raw feeding, I really recommend you do it cold turkey. It is not recommended that you mix kibble with raw food. Kibble sits in their digestive systems for quite some time. It takes longer to digest. Raw goes right through them. I usually take my dogs out for a walk after they've eaten. But you just don't want to mix kibble that's going to sit in their gut for a long time and then mix it with raw that's going to try to go right through them. So I don't recommend mixing the two together within the same meal. If you really want to try to go slow, I recommend maybe giving a little small piece of raw meat and giving it as a treat, and then see how they tolerate it and go from there. And then just one day go cold turkey if you're worried about that. But understand that, you may cause a little bit of an upset tummy if you try to do both at one time. That's not really recommended. And then the other thing is, even when you are transitioning to a raw diet correctly, it is normal for there to be temporary diarrhea. because your dog has to develop the digestive enzymes to be able to tolerate raw food. You know, it's almost similar to like a cleanse in humans. You know, when we're used to eating a certain type of diet and then all of a sudden we're eating a lot of fiber and eating kale and eating greens, it can have a similar effect. Same thing with raw. You are going to see a little bit of a change temporarily. It's nothing to worry about if it doesn't last for more than a week or two, but for a week or two you may notice a change in that, and that can be normal. You can give the canned pumpkin if you're that worried about it, but understand your dog has to develop the tolerance and the enzymes to be able to eat raw, okay? Because it is a big change, but once you transition successfully, I personally think it's worth it. You know, my dogs have very beautiful, shiny, radiant coats. They're very healthy. My French Bulldog, I'm going to talk while I do this. My French Bulldog was at the vet for a checkup, and the vet complimented me on how I had maintained her weight very well, because French Bulldogs often become quite overweight. And so I think it's easier for a dog to be overweight on kibble than it is on raw. The other thing about raw that I love is that you see how moist this meat is. When you have a dog on a raw diet, oftentimes they don't need to drink as much water out of the bowl because the meat is so hydrating to them. I offer water to my dogs all the time, and they'll take a few laps. You know, they'll lap it up, you know, a little bit and take a few sips, but then they're done. Like it's very unusual for them to want to drink a whole bowl of water because they're already well hydrated with this meat. So I'm going to go ahead. I already cut this up. So I'm going to put this here, and then what do I want to do next? I kind of weigh everything at the end, because if I weigh every single time I pull something out, it'd take forever. And I am taking a little bit longer today just for the sake of the demonstration. So this is my chicken livers. I'm going to go ahead, get some of this. And this is actually really good. I'm going to show you everything together at once, once I'm done. So again, please use this very sparingly. You will get projectile diarrhea if this is overused. So we did the pork tenderloin. I'm going to go ahead and cut another piece for Sadie later, and then we'll put it to the side, and then we'll get to that when we're ready. But we're still working on Layla. Sadie gets about 5 ounces of meat per serving, which is what normal people usually, I think that's what they recommend for us in a serving, humans. So she gets about 5 ounces per feed. So she eats a total of 10 ounces a day. And then my Mastiff eats 3 pounds a day. So I'm going to go ahead and put this to the side here for Sadie. And I'm all done with this. I'm going to start putting this off to the side. So here I have my bison meat. I'm just grabbing a knife here. And there's really no wrong way to feed raw. There's so many different products out there. You can use ground beef, you can use ground pork, you can use ground bison. I love ground bison, but you know, sometimes you can't always find it. So here it is right here. Nice red meat. Okay. So I got some of that. I'm kind of playing it by ear, and I'm going to have to weigh afterward. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and cut through this right here. This is my cheek meat. All right. All right. So this is what I was talking to you about. So with this cheek meat, a lot of this is just muscle, and some meat, like this white right here, is not actually fat. This is muscle. Now there is a little bit of fat on the outskirts here. That's fine. Give them the fat. It's not going to hurt them. Okay. And yeah, this is just a lot of muscle right here, and then the actual meat. So I'm going to cut. Now this can be, excuse the chopping here, but it can be quite tough because of the muscle. So, and my hands are a little slippery from handling things. So my aim and precision is probably not what it normally is. There we go. We're getting to the bottom here. One more. All right. There we go. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put that there. So I think I didn't do any of the beef tongue. So let me go ahead and start weighing this meat, because I don't want to just throw a whole bunch of things on here, and whatever is extra I may just kind of put to the side for Sadie. So here I have my scale. Make sure it's lined up. Okay, I'll just turn it on like this. Oh, this is the on button. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is really nice because I can just throw meat on here, throw food on, and it tells me how much I'm working with. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this on. Okay, so I have, so with 1.5 pounds, that's about 1 pound, 8 ounces. So I have 12.6. So some of this is probably going to be given to Sadie. So what I can probably do is I'm going to take off this chicken leg here, put it to the side for Sadie. That way she gets some chicken. Okay, so now I have 1 pound, 7.4, which is perfectly fine because I wanted to put a little bit of beef tongue in. So that frees up a little bit of weight for me to put my final ingredient in. Okay, so let's do the beef tongue. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this over to the side like this. I'm going to get this out of the way for now. It'll probably be back at some point when I need it. Okay, let's go ahead and do the tongue. Okay. Okay. So I understand that this is probably, I guess raw feeding is not for everyone, and a lot of the items that I'm using here are probably not seen as being too appetizing by many people, but all of them have a great source of iron and protein, and that's what really matters. The dogs love their food, so to each his own. All right, these packages sometimes, the way they make them, difficult to open, sorry. All right, there we go. Okay, so beef tongue is actually quite large. This is folded over in half. So I'm gonna just pull this here. Okay, I'm sorry, gross out alert. So if it grosses you out, I'm sorry, you may need to click off or look the other way. However, I do need to demonstrate for those of you that have a little bit of a tougher stomach. So this is the undermeat that I was telling you about. This is the actual tongue. Now, usually when people are serving this to feed actual people, they peel this top part off. This is very coarse and very rough, okay, like the tongue of a cow. But under here, there's just a tremendous amount of meat and muscle. Look at this. Like you can see right here, just some really solid, beefy red meat. So I'm actually going to take the underside whenever I'm cutting this. And this is huge. I mean, these go for anywhere from 20 to 30 bucks a package. But it can feed my dogs for a week in conjunction with other things. So I'm going to go ahead and just slice this way. And the nice thing about beef tongue is that it slices really nice. You can either slice this way or slice this way, and it's really nice. Now, I'll be honest with you, the beef cheek is quite tough because of all that muscle and cheek meat, but the beef tongue is very, very tender. I mean, I'm going to just give you a close-up. You can see this smooth muscle meat right here. Just a little bit of fat here, teeny bit of muscle, but this is really a good piece of meat. Now, I was at like 1 pound, 7.4 ounces for Layla when I had weighed it. I really need to be at 1 pound, 8 ounces. I'm probably going to be slightly over 8 ounces, slightly over 1 pound, 8 ounces. It's fine. I'm going to go ahead and just put this on. So we're all set. Now, the other thing with, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of, let me put this here. I may not give Sadie beef tongue tonight. I may kind of switch it up for her and give her some tomorrow, because I can look at this right here for Sadie, and I think this is going to be more than enough. This actually might be more than 5 ounces of meat, so I just don't want to overdo it. But I am actually going to give her a teeny bit of liver. I want her to have that health benefit. Yeah, there we go. Very important. Okay. And so I'm going to just put this through. Some of these packages are not very easy to reuse, but okay. I realize I'm making a mess here. Okay. So, the finishing touches. So we have all this meat here. Sometimes if I really want to add protein into the diet or add calcium, I will put an egg in, a raw egg. Now, the important thing to know about an egg with raw feeding, you want to get the whole egg, okay? Please don't throw the shell out. The shell has a tremendous amount of calcium, and kind of like that calcium phosphorus ratio that I talked about earlier in the video. Most vets want to know that your dog is getting enough calcium and phosphorus and getting a good balance. So, definitely putting bone in is going to be good. I'll be very frank with you. Raw feeding without bone is not acceptable. Sometimes it can be hard to really process a dog eating a bone, but just understand that that's part of the dog's staple diet, and they really need that bone to get that calcium. And then as well as the egg, they really need to eat the whole egg, because this outer shell has a lot of calcium. And with a big dog like Layla, any type of large breed dog, you really want to make sure they're getting enough calcium. So I just kind of mix it in, and I'm kind of putting my hands in, sorry. Yeah, I'm going to put it all in like that. You kind of mix it, you can mix it in if you want. She has no problem eating the shells. Not all dogs like to eat the shells. So one way you can get them to eat the shell is to mix it in with the meat so that they think it tastes like everything else in here, and then you won't have a problem. Now, okay, so I put egg in. I don't always put egg in the mixture every single day or for every single feeding, but I did with this one because I want her to have a little bit of calcium. I want her to have a little bit more protein. And sometimes what I'll also do, and I left this out, you can get this from the pet store. This is a bowl topper or a bowl booster. This is air dried raw meat. I think it's turkey and chicken. And sometimes if I want to really boost calories or boost protein, I will put this on top of everything. And I do not weigh this. This is above and beyond the weight. So for example, with Layla, I want to give her, 1 pound, 8 ounces worth of meat per meal. I'll weigh out the 1 pound, 8 ounces, and then I'll put this on top as kind of like a gravy, extra protein, extra calories. We ran into an issue a few weeks ago when she was in a kennel. When I was away out of town, she lost quite a bit of weight in the kennel. And so when I came back home and brought her back, I really supplemented with that, and it really helped her put on the pounds. So this can be a really good option if you're looking to boost your dog's weight and to give them extra. And it's mainly a bunch of protein. Okay, I think it's grain free. No gluten, no grain. So it's just, air dried raw meat. And so I have everything in here. And then what I talked about earlier with the pumpkins, sometimes I will just put a little dollop of pumpkin on top of everything. My dogs really don't have loose stools. But when Layla had challenges in that kennel and had lost weight, she actually did have loose stools. I don't know if she had contracted something from another dog. I'm not quite sure what happened there. But if you're worried about stools for whatever reason, or if you just want to preemptively prevent diarrhea, you can put a little bit of pumpkin in. But like I said, my dogs don't have a problem with diarrhea. And that's the one thing about raw feeding that some people don't realize, is that they really do have a solid, firm form stool, and a lot of times it'll disintegrate by the next day. It'll turn white and disintegrate and disappear. So because it's all natural, it's organic, it's raw. And their stools tend to not smell as bad when they're on a raw diet as well, which is very interesting. Now, I will tell you, getting back to that whole organ meat thing, if you overdo it with the organ meats, like if you overdo it with liver, they can have foul smelling stools with that. But in general, if you're giving a balanced raw diet, you will not have as much of a smelly stool. And also, they also won't go as much. So it's easier to potty train them, especially when they're puppies, when they're on raw, because they just don't need to go to the bathroom as often as when they are on kibble. Okay, so the pumpkin, like the topper, now I'm not going to use the topper today. I just have this for demonstration purposes in case you're interested. But the pumpkin as well, I put this above and beyond the recommended weight. So 1 pound, 8 ounce of meat, eggshell, topper, if applicable, and also the pumpkin. So Layla is ready to go. She's got one more thing. One thing that I like to do, again, if you have a really big dog like I do, and you really want to make sure they maintain a healthy weight, you can always, protein is always a good thing. And as I'm talking, of course, I'm going to struggle with this cap. My fingers are wet. Okay, there we go. I do love organic bone broth. Now, I want to put this in the camera just so you can see what it looks like. Aldi sells it, pretty much any grocery store, Walmart sells it. You really want to get organic bone broth. You don't want to get beef stock, okay? You will see beef stock right next to it on the counter in the same section. That's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about bone broth, okay? And what you want is, oh my goodness, you know what? I ordered this off of Instacart and this lady gave me the wrong broth. Okay, well, that's not going to work. Okay. Oh dear, this is awkward. I really thought she had gotten me bone broth. Okay, so this basically proves my point here, how a lot of people will confuse organic bone broth with beef broth. So I just noticed that this lady gave me the wrong product when I ordered it online. So you want to look for bone broth, and what it is it's basically cooked down bone into a broth, and it's pure protein. It's really good for the dog, extra protein. I am not putting this on because I just realized it's not bone broth. So see, even in my case, it's easy to get the wrong thing. You don't want to do a beef broth. Well, it's not harmful, but everything that I just said with the extra protein and the health properties, the bone broth is your best bet because it's infused with so much protein. But you want to make sure the box says bone broth. So I'm going to put this away. Wow. Okay. Well, so much for that. Okay, I just noticed that. Okay. Well, anyway, what I was going to say is sometimes I will put organic bone broth over the food, over top. Okay. So I'm not going to put that on. But, again, the topper, the egg, the eggshell, the bone broth, extra protein. Okay, can't hurt. It's not required, but it can't hurt either. Okay, so I'm done with this apparently. All right, so let's go to Sadie. I'm going to measure her food real quick. I kind of have a feeling that I might be slightly over 5 ounces for her, but I'm going to just leave it alone. This was a nice little $17 food scale off of Amazon. It's really been a lifesaver. And back when I was having, about a few weeks ago when I talked about that episode with Layla, how she had lost all that weight in the kennel, it was really a lifesaver because it really enabled me to give her enough food and to measure it out to ensure that she was getting what she needed. So looks like I'm a little bit over, but you know what? They kind of had a light breakfast. So I'm going to just give her some extra food. She'll be happy tonight with me for getting extra food. Okay, now with my French Bulldog, really with any small dog. I'm going to turn this off. Okay, there, and take this away. With any small dog, you really want to make sure that you cut the meat into pieces. When you got a big old dog like Layla, my Mastiff, you could probably give him a whole piece of chicken, but I'm going to chop this up. The other thing is French Bulldogs have really tiny constricted airways, and so to give something like this to a French Bulldog in particular is just asking for trouble. I mean, you know, so I'm going to just cut it up. Chicken legs are okay, but they don't have as much good bone as a chicken quarter. But obviously a dog like a French Bulldog is not going to need all that chicken. I mean, Layla, big dog, Mastiff, can take that size of a chicken piece. Now, I just want to show you the tendons here and the ligaments. All of that is really good stuff. So the chicken feet that I mentioned earlier that I don't have tonight has this. This is good for joint development, but you can see that the chicken leg has it too. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that all in, just chopping it up into small pieces. So that's why the bone is important. The bone is very good for them, okay? So I know that we've been trained and we've been taught to think the opposite, but raw bone is actually good for them, okay? And again, I don't recommend beef. It's too dense. It'll break their teeth, but chicken bone is good for them. Just make sure you don't cook the bone, only raw bone. Okay. Oh my goodness. It's looking like a house of horrors in here. Okay. Okay. And I just chop it up into small enough pieces for her to bite. Okay, there we go. We're almost there. Okay. Okay. And all this bone can be eaten. And again, look at this bone marrow. Good stuff, good iron. All of that's good for them. They'll eat it right up. Okay. Oh my goodness, that just flew right off the table. Okay, well, I think that's going to be it. And oh, you know, I am going to give her a little bit. Now, Sadie, I am giving her a bigger portion than normal of meat. So I'm not going to add the egg. Sometimes I do give her egg. She does not like the shell. Layla will eat it. Sadie won't. But I mean, I have 9 ounces of meat here. I'm kind of feeding her a little too well. But like I said, they did have a light breakfast, so this will just balance it out. So, you know, again, the pumpkin, if you want, you don't have to add pumpkin. But again, if you're worried about loose stools, or if you're trying to prevent loose stools, I'm just kind of doing it for the demonstration. I really don't feed them pumpkin that much, but I just wanted to do it for the video so you could see it above and beyond the weight. So I'm actually all done. So I'm going to go ahead and feed this to them. Now, the important thing, just a little disclaimer, you know, I wash my hands before I turn the camera on. You really want to make sure you practice really good hand washing technique and hygiene with raw food. You know, when you get raw food, make sure it stays refrigerated. If it's going to be a little while before you get to it, please freeze it. Once you thaw it, please don't refreeze. Wash your hands before, you know, and after handling the raw food, and make sure you wash the dishes very, very well. It's easy to be able to get away with not washing a bowl in between kibble feeds, but you really can't get away with that with raw feeding. You really want to make sure you're washing this bowl every time before you use it, because, you know, the risk of bacteria. So another thing I wanted to address that I just thought of, a lot of naysayers of raw feeding will bring up the risk of salmonella. It's so rare. I mean, I've talked to other owners that raw feed, and I've been, like I said, I've been raw feeding my dogs for most of their lives. it's so rare. Please, if you're interested in raw feeding, do not allow somebody to scare you or deter you from raw feeding by bringing up salmonella. It's so rare, and I would really be interested in seeing the research and the data behind that. I mean, it's just not there. Dogs are canines, and way back in the day before we domesticated them, they ate stuff like this all the time, maybe minus the pumpkin. So, once they get transitioned to it, they really acclimate to this diet and they do very well. Again, I get so many compliments on my dog's weights. I get compliments on their coats. I mean, they're so shiny and radiant in the sun. They're so healthy. None of them have health problems, and French Bulldogs are notorious for having a lot of health issues. And I mean, they're both so healthy. So I could not be happier with the way that we're doing things. It's not for everyone, but if you're interested, it's worth a try. Please like, share, subscribe below. Thank you so much for watching. And for the life of me, I do not know why I was moved to make this video, because I normally do regular cooking for human beings, but I just woke up this morning and said, you know what? I want to do a raw feeding diet video. So I did. So if you have any questions, please drop them below. If you feed your dogs raw, please let me know what you put in your regimen. But this is kind of how I do it. I don't have my chicken feet. I almost always use chicken feet. But again, you switch it up, do the variety. But I think this is kind of a good overview of what it'll look like. So again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye for now.